So yesterday we were trying to do this test case, okay, and we have this to do 70%. We need to fix the thing, and it's saying the line number 10 to 16 is still not testable. So we need to test this line's number. So what is the line number? What is the line number we have to test now 10 to 16? So 10 to 16 means from here till here. So generally what's happening now? It's calling the set to do function, and set to do has a parameter called as a function here. Now if we see our test case, we have just a simple function here, which is the set to do function as a simple function. So we need to see that when we call the set to do, it should call one function like this with some previous value. So that is the task which we need to achieve. So it should have this function, not the simple only function. So if you see, the set to do is a function which is invoked here, but it has one parameter called as a function. This function is passed to set to do. So same thing we need to simulate. Same thing we need to simulate here in our test page. Okay, so let's do that one. So what I will do, I will create one more test case, and here I will say should test the set to do function. So right now I'm passing set to do as only a mock function, which is a simple function. That means I created a simple function like this, and this is the function. Maybe I can name it ABC. So something in the set to do, we are passing this simple function. But simple function does not have any parameter and it does nothing. Whereas here in the set to do, parameter is a function. So we need something, a function to be passed with some parameters here like previous value. So we need something like it should have function, and this function, maybe I can write a function like this, and this function can take this function should have some previous value like this. Okay, so how to achieve this really? So this is not the right way to achieve this. Let's do that correctly. So here I will create, instead of this set to do mock function, I will create another function called as mock set to do function, func. So there can be many ways to define this. I had tried yesterday one way, which I will be using it here. Maybe if you have some other way, you can also try that one. Okay, so that's what we can do that. Now what I will do, I will create this mock set to do function as closure. Okay, closure with some previous value. So I will just define some dummy previous value. Maybe I can say Amazon, Google. So I'm just creating the previous value as a dummy one. Okay, because here the previous value is something which we had defined here in the to do. It's an empty array right now. But when we try to put anything, this previous value is coming from here as an empty array. And then we are updating it with the new object. So same thing I will be doing. I will just put previous array as dummy one. I can put empty array also. But let's try this one and then We can put empty also, whatever you feel. Now I'll create one closure function called as process, and this process function will take parameter called as a function fn. So this process function will take the function as a parameter, and I'll return this process. So this is a closure and it will go to the global scope. I will return this process. Now what will happen when I call this set to do mock function like this? It will return me this process, and process is nothing but a function which will take the parameter as a function. So set to do is also a function which takes a parameter of function. This is the function here. Okay, same thing we are doing here. We are passing function inside. So this function which we are passing is nothing but this function which we have defined it here, previous and this inside one. So this function is this one. So once we get this function will be passed here as a fn. So we need to just invoke this fn. So what I will do, I will invoke the fn. And initially it's saying some previous value should be there. So I will invoke with my custom mock previous value here. So what it is doing, it is creating a variable inside my function, and that variable is a closure because it can be accessed outside this function, and I return the process. So when I call this, a process is returned which has a parameter function. This process is nothing but a set to do function which we will call in reality with some function which is this function, and I will run this function here. I will run this function with the previous one, which is this one. So this previous value is nothing but the previous value which we are getting it here, which is exactly coming from here. But in our test case, we need to mock the things. We cannot pass the real one. So I'm just putting previous one as a mock one. But when I'm calling this function, it is calling real function here, this one. But previous value is coming from my closure variable, this one. So now this mock to do function is nothing but I need to pass in the set to do case. And I will invoke it immediately. When I invoke it immediately, that means set to do is nothing but the process which can access the variable previous. And when set to do is called, in reality process is called with the function, and that function is nothing but this function. This is the function if you see, and it has the previous value of this one. Previous value of this one. And then when this function is run, in reality this function will be run with the previous value which we are passing it from here. And it will then go through inside it, and it will be able to test it, that thing. So now let's run this, and we try to add the apple here, and we try to click the button, and after button we expect the value to be empty. Same thing which we have written here, but here we are changing the mock function, set to do as a mock function. Maybe I can delete this one because same thing is doing it here, so we don't need this part. Let's run this and then we can delete this part also. If you have not understood this part clearly, then also it's okay. Just try to think that I created one closure function which has some previous dummy value, and I'm passing this closure function for my set to do. So anytime you try to use the use state, you can call this same function and use it. And now if I see, my to do input is 100% done for all the cases, because we are calling this function with some previous value which I have here. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do it here. Now this is something. Now let's delete this part and see if we are getting 100% or not. Okay, so we are getting 100%. So by deleting this, that means that test was not necessary because I copied everything here. So write down this test and see if it is working for you. And then we will do some more experiment here and try to do some changes and see how it goes. I'll give you this in Telegram group. So try to run it and see if it is working. Is it done? Okay, so we can try to do changes in this function. Instead of passing the constant previous year, I can pass previous year and do the same thing, and initially I will pass it here. So it is same thing, just I'm passing previous year, which is going here as an empty array, and then it will call this one, and it also will give me 100% kind of thing. Okay, so there are different ways we can do that one. So whatever you want to put it hard coded inside, or you want to put it here, it's one and the same thing. I can put here Amazon, Google, and same thing will work in the same way. Okay, so now also it is 100%. So we completed the to-do input page with all the test cases. Now let's go and build some React part. So we have done the top header testing, we have done the footer testing, we have done the input part of testing, and now the last part remaining is to-do listing. And then we go to followers one. So in the listing part, we will display all the tasks which are there. We will display it here, like test 1, test 2, test 3. So we have to display all this one here in the listing part. So let's do the React part for the listing, and then we'll write down the unit test cases for that one. Let me close this one, and my to-do page is calling to-do listing, and it passes the to-do here. So if I go to to-do listing pay component, we should expect to-do is coming from the to-do page. And here I will just put H3 to-do listings, and I have to loop through these to-dos. Okay, so I will do here like this: to-do.map, and I'll say rec. So let's wrap this whole thing in the UL tag, and when we get the to-do, we will get li tag. Sorry, we have to return li tag. And how it is saved, how the data is saved, just check in the add input. So it is saved as ID, task, and completed. So let's display the task, and we will display if it is completed or not. So here I'll say rec.task, and here I will say if rec.completed is true, then we'll say done. And if it is not completed, I'll say pending. Sorry. Okay, so this is something I'll here put key equal to rec.id. Okay, so I'm displaying the task and whether it is completed or pending. So let's refresh the page. Test. So test is pending. Test 2 is pending. Test 3 is pending. Test 4 is pending. Okay, so this is something it's pending in the listing one. And if I see we have this ID, it's completed equal to this, and ID is like this. This is the object for each one, and I'm getting it pending. Now what I want to do, if I click this test 1, it should change from pending to completed. Okay, so this part is done, to do listing. Just write down this one. We will do the click part in a minute. Okay, so just complete this to do listing, and then we'll update this page by, let's say user click this one, test pending, it should change to completed. Then if we click again, so it will change from completed to pending. So some sort of update part we have to write down. Okay, let's go further now. So what I have to do when someone clicks here, I will update this to be done or pending. If it is pending, I will make it done. If it is done, I'll make it pending. So I will create one function which will be called as update, constant update listing. And it will, so it will take some index, for example, index, it will take index. And here I will just say, I will go through to-dos one, and for that index, I will update it to completed true or false. So I will say to-dos index dot completed. So I will go to to-dos is a list of all to-dos. Index is which index I am passing it. I can also pass ID, ID, and based on ID I can find the index. But for this simplicity, I'm just passing index here. Otherwise, I can write a task that it will go through all to do, find the ID, and based on ID, you find the which to do you want to update it. So I'll say to do's, and I will put the ID which I want to update, and I will make completed equal to true or false. So if it is already completed, then I will make it, or I will say completed is equal to not completed. So initially, if it is true, it will become false, and if it is false, it will become true. And once this is done, we need to update the to do also, because this to do, this part is locally to this function. We need to update this to do also. So how will I update the to do? Because once I change it completed to not completed, then I need to update the to do. So how will I update the to dos? So that my view should change based on the to dos. So we need to update the to dos value. How will I change this updated version in the to dos? Because so we need to call this set to dos here, and once it is updated, I will call the set to dos with the to dos, new to dos. Okay, so set to dos has to be passed here also in the listing. Also, I need to pass this function because we need to run this function also, because once it is completed, the number of completed tasks will change. So this part is also we have to pass it here. And once say to do is changed, I will also call this function with the to do's. Okay, so this everything will change. Now update listing is called on the click of li. So I will say on click equal to a function which will call the update listing with some index. And right now I don't have that index because I did not put the index. I will put the index here. So when we map, we get the index, and I pass this index here. It will go into the update listing, and for that we update the to do, and we call the set to do to update the to dos, and we'll also call the calculate number of incompleted tasks to the to do, so that when the task is changed, the number of counts should change based on what to do is there. So let's refresh the page, and I'll put some test. Fixing test is pending, and it become done. It again become pending. Test 2, test 3. I change this one to done. then you see 0 tasks left. Okay, so now 3 tasks left. So we are able to click it and change it to different one. Let's make this style to cursor. So cursor is pointer. So we have this pointer here. When I click it, it call updated one and it changes the pending to done. So just update your this to-do listing. Okay, so our listing page is also done. We will write the test cases for the listing now, and then the remaining thing will be the followers, which will be the asynchronous call, AJAX call to the backend server, and that part we will make tomorrow, and we will write down the test case for that also. Okay, so let's start to write down the test cases for the listing part. Okay, I'm thinking to see. Okay, let's write on the listing one, new folder, __ test __, and I'll write on the new file to do listing.test.js. Okay, so it will follow similar thing what we do in the test input. I will just copy few lines to do listing, and then I'll start the describe part. Okay, we'll write few test case now, few tomorrow. It's a to-do listing. And then I'll first check the render part. This is the render one, whether it is rendering proper or not. Okay. So here in the to-do listing, we don't have anything of this placeholder text. So let's try to check this one, to-do listings. So I'll try to find get by text, and I'll put this one to do listings. And if we get this one, that means it is working fine. Okay, so let's see how it works now. Okay, let's save it again. Okay, we are getting one fail. Something is wrong. Okay, so to-dos map is giving error because to-do listing is expecting to-dos also, which we are not passing it here. So let's pass empty array now. Okay, so you will see I passed empty array, it is passed, and we got the 28.57%. So just write down this first case, and then we'll move to other cases also. I'll give you in React Telegram group. Okay, so just write down this one, first case. The ultimate goal is we need to reach the 100% for this to-do listing also. Okay, so let's move to other test case. Let's go to other test case and see what we can do. Second test case I want to do, I'll just copy this and I'll change it. So I want to see if these listings are proper. So to make these listings proper, I will give some test ID here, and I will just give some test ID, for example, data test ID equal to do listings to do listing rows. So these are the rows for each listing. I'll get this by this get listing rows render. It should check the number of rendered rows. I'm just putting some comment how many rows are rendered. Here I will pass in the to do, I will pass few dummy data. Maybe I'll say ID equal to 1, and I'll say task equal to test 1, and I'll say completed equal to false. I'm just passing few data. So ID is 2 here, 2, and this is false. Okay, so I'm just putting 2 dummy data, and I'll try to get all this data by calling this to do rows. Since this is the array, so when I try to take this one, I cannot take it by get by test ID. If I try to do like this, if I try to do this like this, and I'll do console.log of element. See what is the problem I'm getting. See, this to-do listing for rows is for each li. That means if I pass two records, there will be two to-do listing rows. And here I am calling get by test ID, and that's why it is giving one failed, because it's saying get by test ID. There is some problem here, and we have seen this. There are two listing. One is test 1 and one is test 2. That means there are two data test ID. So we can, when we have more than one element, that is more than one test ID, we cannot use get by test ID. We have to use get all by test ID. Then we'll get the array of records and we will count that array. If you only put get by test ID, you will get error, because we have more than one element for that. This one element for to-do listing rows. Now you will see when I call the get all by test ID, I get the element as an array with the first element, and then this is the second element. So how to check this one? So we can check this like this: expect element dot length. Since we pass 2, that means the element will be 2, so length will be 2. So I'll set to be 2. When I say 2, that means it will check how many elements are in the 2, and it will give correct result. So it is passed, and you will see my to-do listing is updated with the 42% now. So I'll give you this part and just try to write down this test, and then we'll go to next test. Okay, let's go to another test now. So we are able to go through each record, and we were able to see records are as per how many to-dos are there. So many records are there in this li. Now we will try to click each record and try to see if the listing is updated. Okay, so that's what we will try to do it. So let's try to click that one. I'll copy this one, and here I will say should check the updated listing. So we will pass two records, and we will see the length is 2, and then we will click one of the length. So maybe we can click the first one or we can click the second one. So let's try to do the click part. So I will do the fire event. If we want to do click, we will use fire event dot click. And which one I want to click? If I want to click the first one or second one. So if I want to click first one, I will say element of 0. And if I want to do the click of second, then we'll say element of 1. And then we will try to see what is coming in the screen. So after clicking, we'll see what is coming in the screen. Okay. Okay, so after clicking, I see, so this click is happen to the element of 0, and then okay, so the thing is that when we click the element, it tries to call the set to do, but set to do does nothing here. It is kind of dummy. Okay, so it is the mock function. It does nothing. It does not update the to do listing. Okay, so to really test this part, when I click the button, I should do the unit testing on the to do page. Okay, if I'm doing it here, set to do is doing nothing, and so we are not able to test it properly. This part. Okay, so though this has gone to 100%, but we are not able to check the updated value. So when I try to see this screen, then you will see both are still pending. We don't see the updated value, because to see the updated value, we really need to go into the page, to do page, and pass from here, which we will do tomorrow, not today, but today at least. Maybe not tomorrow. In few days we will do this integration testing, or tomorrow also. I don't know when we do this one. But we are not able to see the done or pending state because our set to do is dummy and the calculate is also dummy. So here you will see in the screen both are still pending. Okay, let's see what is on the 23rd line number. Okay, so it's trying to see if it is completed is true or false. So we need one data with the true, one data with the false one. So let's write down. So I will not do anything here. I will just call the click element, because it will call this updated listing. That's what I am trying to test, that updated listing is called. But I'm not trying to test whether value is really updated or not, because since to do is a dummy function, I know that set to do will never update the real value. So we are okay to call this test only to test that when I click it, it calls this update listing. And by checking this percentage, I see that something has happened, because the number of percentages increased to 100 here, but it is 50 here. We need to fix this 50 also. So to fix this 50, just we have to do one thing. One of the tests we need to make it true, one to be the false, because it was giving the number. See, both have gone 100. If I make this false, how I know I want to make this true? I checked here. We have to make sure that 23 line number is covered. And if I go to 23 line number, it's saying if completed, done, if not completed, pending. So we should test both the conditions. And I put false in one case and true in one case to cover both the conditions. So if I make false and true, it will cover both the conditions, and we will be able to test this condition here, 100, 100. Okay, so just write down this last test again. But we will also go through in the to-do page, where we will see the real value is getting updated. Here we are just passing a dummy function, so we are not getting the real image. But with the to-do page, we will not pass the dummy function, because here already we have to do and calculate number of tasks as a real function. So we don't need to pass the dummy one. So when we write down the test case for to-do page, we will be able to really test when someone will click it, value gets changed. So now you will see we completed the header part 100%, to do footer 100%, to do input 100%, to do listing 100%. So everything is 100% here. So that's all for today. Tomorrow we will work on the to-do page test cases, and then we will go to the followers one. We have to do the followers one. Followers one we are doing because we want to learn the Ajax call. In this to-do page, we did not did anything Ajax. Everything was local. But when we go to the followers one, we will test the Ajax call also. Any questions? That's all for